I'm Steve Loscalzo, and this is The Way. You're listening to the April 2026 This is The Way podcast Star Wars news update. Star Wars Maul Shadow Lord debuted early in April, releasing 2 episodes a week for the rest of the month. The final 2 episodes, at least of Season 1, will become available on Star Wars Day, May the 4th. 8 episodes have released so far. The episodes are chapters, so Chapter 1, 2, 3, and so on. The Dark Revenge and Sinister Schemes became available on April 6th. A week later, Whispers in the Unknown and Pride and Vengeance. On April 20th, Inquisition and Night of the Hunted. And earlier this week, as of the recording of this podcast, that is, was Call to Oblivion and The Creeping Fear, which name-checked a character from Solo, a Star Wars story. Next up on May the 4th is going to be Shadow Lord Chapter 9, Strange Allies, and Episode 10, appropriately titled Finale.
Kenobi!
It is time for me to report Star Wars news released since our last news update podcast. Star Wars Maul Shadow Lord is 2 episodes away from wrapping up Season 1. Based on where this show is in the story between the Clone Wars, the live-action Solo movie, and Maul's eventual demise at the hands of Obi-Wan in Rebels, I believe that more seasons are planned, if they're not already green-lit and in production. Now, I'm not reviewing, recapping, or discussing the show. I am watching it, but I'm not recapping it and all that because it's not live action. My only comment on the show so far is it's kind of boring. I've struggled to stay awake through even 1 episode. Chapter 6 might have been the most exciting of the 8 so far, in my opinion, and 7 and 8 were okay. I mean, they had some revelations, but even that is not enough to get me excited enough to want to watch the episodes the night that they release. Maul also doesn't seem to be the star of his own show. I wish my honest opinions on it were more glowing, but I was never a big fan of Maul's to begin with, and I've not cared about Captain Lawson can I just admit, I actually had to go look up character names. I've watched all the episodes, and I even included information on these characters in several podcast episodes leading up to the release, but I couldn't even tell you the Jedi's names. Also, I just looked them up on StarWars.com, and I'm not even going to bother to mention since I couldn't name them. And one of the characters was voiced by Vanessa Marshall, like she did in the Clone Wars, which comes before her time voicing Hera in Rebels.
Ezra, get out of there right now. That's an order.
So Maul wraps up around Star Wars Day, and later in the month, The Mandalorian and Grogu movie releases. And by the time you're listening to this April update episode, it may actually be May, so that means it's this month. Tickets for the movie have been on sale since mid-April, but this movie is not expected to be the kind that sells out for multiple showings. Maybe the first showings for the IMAX version or something, but the latest reports from the website boxofficepro.com say the 3-day opening figures could be between $90 and $100 million. Now, that's not enough to make money on the movie yet, but it would be higher than the 3-day total for the release of Solo, which made only about $84.4 million, and that was also released around Memorial Day. Either of those figures would be far under what the movie releases for Christmas movies made. On April 17th, the final trailer for The Mandalorian and Grogu was released online. That coincided with the tickets going on sale, which makes sense from a marketing standpoint. There were a few brand new scenes shown in the trailer, but the scenes were mostly just expanding on scenes that we saw in previous trailer versions. It's still worth watching the final trailer online if you need the extra hype, but soon it's going to be hard to avoid seeing ads for it. In addition to the trailer, there was a clip shown on one of the late night talk shows that showcases Zeb teaming up with our 2 title heroes. Din Djarin and Garazeb Aurelius are fleeing stormtroopers with one of the Imperial warlords we've seen in Season 3 of The Mandalorian. Some details about that warlord were revealed in a now taken down website promoting the movie in the UK. It would seem that the Lord Janu that we're talking about was a former Imperial pilot and either was or will become a rival to Trapper Wolf. Now, if that name sounds familiar, it's the name of the character in the Mandalorian TV series played by Dave Filoni, the head of Lucasfilm. Now, we first saw Trapper Wolf in Season 1 destroying a space station with a few other Rebel X-Wing pilots who were directors in the first season. And then we saw Wolf again early in Season 2 chasing down and then rescuing Din Djarin and his human cargo on the way to the eventual meetup with Bo-Katan and her crew. We've only seen Lord Janu, played by Johnny Coyne, in hologram form, except if you watch the clip. And we really didn't even have a fully fleshed out character back then in Season 3 of the show. He was just someone for Moff Gideon to play off. Now the trailer scenes where Zeb is attacking stormtroopers in a hallway may have some context. Perhaps they are abducting that Lord Janu. It would appear that our Mandalorian and Zeb have kidnapped Lord Janu, played by Coyne, and they're trying to make their way back to the new Razor Crest. Grogu's waiting there, and the call goes out from Daddy Din to his baby Yoda boy in the ship, but there's some comedy in the choice of assistants that relates to Grogu's penchant for pushing buttons or flipping switches, and you can see that clip now in HD online by searching for it.
I don't think he knows what he's doing.
I know some YouTube channels are confident enough that they can post those clips or edit them in a certain way that won't get them a copyright strike, but I just don't want the headache. And you can go and search for the video clip on YouTube by yourself. You know how to do that. If you found my podcast, you can find that clip and watch for yourself. Now, there might be more coming for May the 4th. In fact, I know of 2 events planned for Star Wars Day. One is a fan celebration planned for Berlin, Germany, where there will be a meet and greet with a filmmaker, probably Jon Favreau, and some cast, probably Sigourney Weaver. Now, whether footage will be seen and then eventually leaked, we're going to have to wait to see. Closer to home, at 64 U.S. locations and 3 in Canada, there is going to be a special look event at IMAX theaters spread across North America. And it's already sold out. I know, I went and tried to see if I could get a couple of tickets to the one near me. Those who have tickets are going to be treated to a preview of over 25 minutes of content. Content. It didn't say the movie, it just says content. And attendees will get a new limited edition mini poster. There are other promotions tied to Star Wars Day as well. Burger King has a special menu coming with a barbecue bounty whopper, Grogu's blue cookie shake, Grogu's garlic chicken fries, Imperial cheddar ranch tots, and 4 collectible cups and kids menu collectible toys. Those cups are plastic. They're never going to be as cool as the glasses they gave out back in the Return of the Jedi days.
Burger King presents Return of the Jedi glasses. 4 new glasses from the Star Wars saga.
I'd like to take a moment and mention a word here to those of you who are hoping to avoid spoilers. The closer we get to the release of the movie, the more you're going to hear and see if you're not careful. In the promotional push, cast and crew are doing interviews, and while it's designed to hype you up for the movie, bits and pieces of the plot end up getting mentioned and then tied in with rumors that have already been circulating for months or even years. So stay off things like Reddit, the Star Wars Leaks channel. Adam Savage has videos making the rounds of him in the new Razor Crest and building a Grogu animatronic. IGN has a video featuring some behind-the-scenes footage from sets where he reveals some of the techniques used to bring aliens to life, like practical miniatures, puppets, animatronics, and of course, computer graphics. All of these things are going to be available after the movie comes out, so if you really want to just wait, see the movie, and then go and find these extra cool little tidbits, that might be the way to go. I know that's backwards, but you might also want to avoid like some of the magazines and online articles. It's going to be really tough. If you use social media, you're going to see headlines. There's an article that has an interview from Jon Favreau in SFX magazine. He talked about Rod of the Hutt and how the relationship with his father interested him in a way that reminded him of the movie Creed, about Apollo Creed's son from the Rocky movies. Now, Favreau also let slip that this movie is not exactly season 4 of The Mandalorian, but it would have set up Ahsoka's second season, and it might have included Grand Admiral Thrawn. Season 4 would have. Now, what killed that 4th season was the recent writers and actors strikes. So he had to start over. And what was resulted was this movie. So when you do that, you can't assume that everyone who sits down for the movie is going to have watched all 3 seasons of The Mandalorian, right? So that is going to affect how the movie plays out on the screen, because there might be some stuff like, why are they saying this? We already know that. Well, a cultural phenomenon like Grogu might not need to have a full introduction, but you're going to have to explain who Rada is and who Zeb is, because not everybody watched Rebels. The viewers might also be wondering where this movie fits in with the timeline. Well, the First Order is a whisper at this point in the timeline. So you're going to have to explain and ground this movie differently. Ahsoka Season 1 is available, but Season 2 comes out later this year. Dave Filoni's busy in his new role running Lucasfilm. So how has that affected the storytelling for things that he had a direct hand in, and how much has his impact when he wasn't in charge remained now that he is in charge? I would think that it would, that the ship was going a certain direction and he's keeping it steering it that way, but we don't know. And once again, The Mandalorian and Grogu movie comes out Memorial Day weekend, May 22nd. Make sure to set aside at least 2.5 or 2 hours, 12 minutes, if you plan on getting a ticket. 2 hours, 12 minutes, so 2.5 hours, maybe even 2 3/4 hours. 2 hours, 12 minutes is the runtime. And, oh, by the way, it's got a PG-13 rating attached.
Always wear your seatbelt.
The Mandalorian and Grogu, rated PG-13, only in theaters and IMAX May 22nd. Get tickets now.
Ahsoka's second season is months away from streaming on Disney+, but a news note did pop up this month. On April 14th, a X user called Mirai the Messenger posted a voice, stage, screen, and Star Wars video game actor updating his resume. He is cast in a recurring role, and that means he might be in more than one episode. Tommy Earl Jenkins updated his resume via the website Actors Access to show a credit for an unrevealed role in Ahsoka Season 2. Now, could it just be his voice? Could he be the voice of the father from the Star Wars Trinity, the father, son, and daughter? Well, we may have to find out once the show is available.
Let there be no more walls between us, nor masks to hide who we are.
Director Sean Levy seems to have chosen a man he's previously worked with to edit Starfighter, which is now in post-production. Adam Gerstle worked with Levy on Real Steel, but that's far from his only other work. And in fact, he edited 2 episodes of Season 2 of The Mandalorian, the premiere, and the most watched episode, the Season 2 finale. Gerstle updated his resume, and apparently that's how StarWarsNewsNet.com discovered it. I mean, when these guys post updates to their resume, that's when we find things out. His experience includes working with Martin Scorsese on The Aviator and The Departed, and on Disney-released films like Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, Lilo and Stitch, and Avatar. And Martin Scorsese, remember, is going to be in the new Mandalorian and Grogu movie as voicing one of the characters in there. Gerstle, he's also worked with Jon Favreau before, who now has a buddy who's running Lucasfilm, right? It'll be quite some time before all the VFX shots are complete, but the movie is in post-production now, so work is moving fast to try and keep the May 28th, 2027 release date for Starfighter.
What do you want? What do you want?
It's not that simple.
What do you want?
Next up in news, a name we haven't said much since our upset over the canceling of a show she was supposed to be in. Gina Carano reached a settlement with Disney after they wrongfully terminated her from appearing in the now shelved Rangers of the New Republic project and Season 3 of The Mandalorian. Carano is preparing to fight Ronda Rousey in an MMA match. Both have been out of the fighting ring for some time now, but, Carano made a foray into acting, and she claimed in a live interview for the fight with a Yahoo Sports host, Ariel Helwani, that Carano had a Zoom call with both Favreau and Filoni. And that, she says, Dave is taking over as CEO of Star Wars. We didn't miss a beat. Jon Favreau got on Zoom and was really funny. He was like, so, where did we leave off? Now, Carano is almost certainly not in Ahsoka's second season, or The Mandalorian and Grogu. But Filoni is still planning on releasing a movie that wraps up all the storylines started by The Mandalorian and continued in Ahsoka. So would they bring her back for that movie, even if it's just like a little cameo? Well, that movie may be pushed back now that Filoni's head of Lucasfilm, or maybe it has been quietly moving along behind the scenes now that the guy in charge was the one that was doing the planning. Which is it?
We shall see. We shall see.
Star Wars gamers. For the past few news update podcasts, there's been an occasional note on the upcoming racing game called Star Wars Galactic Racer. Well, in April, we may have actually found the release date. A pre-order image seen on Steam was copied, as they are, and then posted, I think, to Reddit. And it shows that it's featuring a promotional reward for buying the game early, and it showed the words, coming October 6th, 2026. Now, there was also an image showing the comparison of a base game purchase to one for the deluxe edition, both in pre-order and when the game was live. I logged into my Steam account to double check, and the pages have indeed already been taken down, but this is the sort of thing that lives on thanks to that Star Wars Leaks Reddit page. Could it be AI? Sure. But who's going to put on that effort for a silly mistake like that? Now, was it taken down because the date needs readjusting, or is there more to it? It's not in pre-order as of the time of this podcast episode's recording, but we can't be sure. We're days, weeks, months away from a release date reveal. We don't know. There's one other note for a game on Steam called Power Wash Simulator 2. And this game is basically you just walk around in environments and use a imaginary jet of water to spray off grime and stuff off it. It's supposed to just give people some satisfaction in completing, like cleaning something. This game exists and people do play it, but for some reason it's been showing up in my algorithms or something. This is going to take place in a story set during the time of the Galactic Civil War. So you have to have the base game, but then you can download some DLC pretty soon. I think it's coming this summer. And you really just search for Power Wash Simulator 2 if you're interested in this. And you may be also seeing these. I guess their push has been very heavy on social media. Just a weird game. But it's one of those things like Farming Simulator. People play that. I mean, it's a game. And if you like just walking around and like that satisfaction of completing a job well done in a digital world, maybe Power Wash Simulator 2 and the new DLC content coming this summer is for you.
These action figures are not yet available.
Collectors. I noticed something on the StarWarsNewsNet.com website featuring something that you can collect if you like Techccessories. Casetify is promoting Star Wars themed tech accessories like phone covers, laptop covers and sleeves, AirPod cases, wallets, available only in the US, and many are inspired by The Mandalorian. The Grogu themed AirPods Pro 2 case normally runs $64, but I checked right before we started recording, and the website still lists it on sale for only $46 and free shipping. It's compatible with USB-C to USB-C and Lightning charging. It doesn't say MagSafe, though, and it's also not covered by their no questions asked return or exchanges. So you do need to make sure you want this thing before you buy it. Now, if I'm being honest, it was the best looking item available on the shop. You can buy the whole set, everything they offer, for $914. But why? I mean, maybe you're just that type of collector, but you really have, maybe you're a seller or something and you want to buy everything, but unless you have one of each kind of phone and everything, I don't know why you'd want to do that. There are 2 smaller sets, and I noticed that the most expensive single item seems to be a Mandalorian and Grogu themed 2-in-1 magnetic charging stand listed for $92. Again, make sure you want to buy it, and you can head over to the Casetify website if you want to check that out. Hasbro Pulse, their website, didn't seem to have any new offerings, at least at the time of the recording of this podcast. Now, there's always a chance that they dump something, and I expect we're going to see listings on May the 4th, because that's Star Wars Day, and that's a big promotional push. So maybe next month we'll see a ton of new figures instead of just a few now and then a few next month. But Lego did have one new offering in the newest section of their online shop. I had to go back in my notes and check, and I think this is something that wasn't there before. The Mandalorian's N1 Starfighter set will set you back $250. Set 75442, 1,809 pieces. Fully assembled, it's about 9 inches tall, 16 inches wide. I think it's like 15 and a half inches wide, and 27 inches deep. And I am not sure if that's when it's being displayed on the included stand or just put together by itself. There are also 2 minifigures. One is a Grogu, and another is a Din Djarin with blaster pistol. The coming soon date, when you click on that item, is May the 4th.
Just one more thing.
Disney Parks news time. It's officially official. On April 23rd, Walt Disney World made an announcement that there will in fact be an update coming to the Smuggler's Run ride in Batuu. The Disney World website for the ride says the new mission is coming on the same day as the new movie, May 22nd. Now I will read from the website here. It says, join Din Djarin, the mysterious Mandalorian bounty hunter, and his youngling Grogu on an exciting new mission, tracking down elusive ex-Imperial officers throughout the galaxy. Plus, for the first time ever, the crew will be in control of their own destination, leading to potential adventures on Bespin, the wreckage of the second Death Star around Endor, or the just-announced bustling city planet, Coruscant. A new gameplay edition shows the engineer positions will be able to communicate with Grogu during the mission. Wow. And at Disneyland, the original trilogy revamp is now live. At Disneyland, you'll be able to visit characters like Luke and Leia. And listen, the actress that's been recently featured in an ex-post making the character reveal has the costuming and the hair down perfect, but she just doesn't look anything like Leia. I'm sure it's really hard to get a lookalike to commit to that kind of schedule and for that pay, but I suppose kids who grew up seeing Carrie Fisher want, well, Carrie Fisher, if you know what I mean. I'm not sure if girls who grew up with Luke and Han feel similar about the actors that are portraying them in the parks, but I'm not trying to upset anyone. I'm just telling you how I feel.
I think we can let him off with the warning this time.
If you think I missed something or you disagree, send email to thisisthewaypodcast@gmail.com. Hey, you can also just give me a friendly note. You could do that too. You can also interact with This Is The Way Podcast on X, Facebook, Instagram. Usually the tag is @ThisIsTheWayPod. I also have a Discord server, but I'm not really promoting it that well. There's not really much demand. I don't have a TikTok and I don't have Snapchat and stuff like that. I just don't. They're not in high demand, and maybe it's also just because I have a blind spot because I'm an older fan, if you will. But I definitely want to hear from you. I know that recently, for some reason, we've had some of the largest audiences that I've ever had, even dating back to when we were a brand new podcast covering the first season of The Mandalorian, and we were getting a lot of views, so much so that we were being approached for promotional opportunities. Well, now, for some reason, the last few months, a lot more of you have tuned in, and I'm so grateful for that.
Luminous beings, Zoe, not this crude matter.
If you have been recently tuning in, you know that I have a segment. It's a new segment called This is the Word. It's my chance to get creative and tie a real-world Bible verse into the Star Wars universe. And that's because in September, someone who was, whether or not you like that person, he was engaging in debate and open debate, and he was silenced. He was murdered. And I felt like, listen, I'm a believer, and I'm going to, step out in faith and expose people to the truth.
This is the way.
And it's just something that I felt led to do. And so we have a Bible verse again this month. And this month, I've chosen something from Galatians, the book of Galatians. It's a letter from Paul to the churches in Galatia. Chapter 4, verse 7 says, "So, you are no longer a slave, but a son. And if a son, then an heir through God." Now, Paul is writing to the churches in Galatia that are starting to get influenced by Jews who've moved there, that are telling people, you can follow Jesus, but you also have to keep the law of Moses. Now, Paul is trying to emphasize to them that salvation through Christ makes following Mosaic law unnecessary, and a group of false teachers known as the Judaizers is saying one of the first things that men have to do is follow the law of circumcision. Now, to open chapter 4, Paul discusses a concept about the children of Abraham and how the descendants were his heirs, but how the children were no different than slaves and under guardians and managers until the date that the father promotes the child to his inheritance. He says in verse 3 that in the same way, we were children enslaved to the world under the law that Mary had Jesus under the law, and then Jesus died for us to fulfill that law. Verse 6 even ends with the cry, "Father! Abba, Father." That made me think, Luke cries out that way. And we're talking about slaves and heirs. Anakin was a slave. And in The Mandalorian and Grogu, we were watching a foundling get fully embraced when he was adopted into a new clan. Din Djarin doesn't just protect Grogu, he claims him as his own, passing on the creed, the armor, the "this is the way" legacy. Din Djarin himself goes from, he was, I guess, an orphan to a bounty hunter and to full heir in the traditions of the Mandalorians. Not just mentored by the armor, but also royalty because of Bo-Katan. Now, as a Star Wars fan, I've tried to pass along my love for the science fiction fantasy that Star Wars is, but, not as hard as my wife and I have tried to pass on our love for Jesus. God sent his son at the perfect moment to redeem us and adopt us as sons and daughters. We're no longer servants. We're no longer slaves to sin. We're heirs with Christ. Hey, this is the way. The Mandalorian creed is a way of life passed from father to son. The biblical way is the way of adoption, redemption, and crying, "Abba, Father," to our heavenly Father. Charles Spurgeon preached a whole sermon on Galatians 4:6 titled "Adoption, the Spirit and the Cry." He rejoices that adoption gives us both the rights of children and the nature of children. Adoption gives us the rights of children. Regeneration gives us the nature of children. We are partakers of both of these, for we are sons, is what he says. He calls it a wonder of grace involving the whole Trinity. The Father planning it, the Son redeeming us, and the Spirit sealing it with that intimate cry, "Abba, Father, Father." Adrian Rogers also preached through Galatians and highlighted this passage on our adoption as God's children, moving from spiritual poverty and slavery into full heirship and the riches of the kingdom. He reminded us that only through faith in Christ do we become sons and daughters who can truly call God Father. Luke didn't have a father, right? But he had a father figure growing up. Leia had Bail Organa, and both of them were son and daughter to Anakin, who never had a father or a father figure. He was a slave, and even after he was freed, I think part of him always felt like a slave. And his powerful impulses were easily manipulated by the powerful around him, like Darth Sidious, and even the Jedi. It's heartbreaking, really. No matter if we have an earthly father or not, we can rejoice that we have one in heaven. God adopts us into his family by sending himself to die for us as the payment for our sins. We are no longer a slave or a servant to this world. We are heirs to the promises of God through Christ.
He speaks the truth.
Thank you so much for joining me for This Is the Way Podcast's April 2026 news update episode. And thank you again for being part of the newly growing or return to growing This Is the Way podcast audience. Thank you so much. I'm your host, Steve Lascalzo, and may the Force be with you always.